I think by far the saddest thing when dealing with an alcoholic in the family is specifically how it affects the children. Especially when the alcoholic is an alcoholic during their entire childhood. It's very confusing for little kids. Mommy's sick or daddy's sick, and then there's a lot of drama. There could be a lot of arguments that go on, and that stress can be passed on to the children. And unfortunately, when they get a little bit older and they're into their teenage years, they can also feel a lot of anger and animosity towards that parent because they're growing up with an absent parent who's belligerent and who just doesn't make any sense. A lot of times they're embarrassed by that person if they have friends come over, and there's a lot of issues that can create in teenagers and younger adults. And that's the biggest problem with alcoholism in the family. And I talk about this really from my own experience because my son is now 24 years old, but unfortunately he never really knew his mother outside the alcoholic years. Her worst years were during his teenage years, from the time he was 12 till he was 19, the last 7-8 years of her life. She was, drunk all the time and very bad. And in his earlier years, recently I had a conversation with him, and he went through things like his mother would drive him to school drunk, and he was scared. I mean, he was like white knuckling in the back seat because she was all over the road. Or one time she couldn't get the car started, and they had to walk home in the rain because she was too drunk to start the car, which was probably a good thing. But these are experiences that a kid shouldn't have to go through. They just shouldn't, and it's unfortunate that this and a lot worse things happens to many kids. And I speak about them because a person should really double down if they're a spouse in this particular case. And really what I mean by doubling down is that the spouse who's hopefully not an alcoholic as well should get that person into a rehab as soon as possible. Get help for that person, make sure they go to their meetings, and really be diligent, or get their family or her family or his family, whatever the situation is, partake in this, or they need to separate, because I don't think kids should be around an alcoholic. They shouldn't be growing up with an alcoholic, because that influence can influence their life later on. Because again, kids don't do what we say, they do what we do. And if they have a parent that's an alcoholic, well, there's a higher probability that the children are going to become alcoholic, and that becomes the worst tragedy of all. And really, I talk about my personal experiences, not to hark on my wife, who's obviously no longer with us, but to learn from these examples and to learn from these experiences. We can only help the living. And if there's some kind of insight that that I'm able to share with this, I'm going to do it. And if you have a child and the parent's an alcoholic, that I don't think the child should be in that situation, or the parent needs to double down on getting better. And that's really the message here, because you don't want to pass this problem on to the next generation. And again, if this type of experience resonates with you and you have something like this going on in your family, or any type of scenario similar, again, click on the link above. Schedule a breakthrough call. I've helped a lot of people. I've helped a lot of alcoholics, and mostly also their families. So again, like, share, and comment. Again, we have a Facebook group called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. Please join that. And again, thanks for listening.